A tried and tested Goliath, Activision Blizzard used to stand head and shoulders above most other multiplayer game developers in terms of both game quality and the amount of games that they had under their belt. World of Warcraft to this day is a nostalgia trip that's hard to accept that their glory days are over. The Overwatch beta was some of the most fun in a game I've ever had in my life. A new Call of Duty comes out every year, and back in the days of Black Ops 2 and the initial two Modern Warfares, many of fights were had over when it was time to turn the Xbox off. Historically, this company was great. On the other hand, Riot Games had a lot of trouble delivering on the S at the end of their name. They seemed to be pigeonholed. They were stuck with a singular, albeit incredibly popular title, until one day that all changed. Someone at Riot had made the decision it was time to print out some more money, and a host of new games were surprised announced at their 10th anniversary event. I think a good way to describe Blizzard is that they are pioneers. The company did a lot of great things and made a lot of creative innovations, but in many ways these days are completely outdated, and they're very much struggling to modernize. For example, without Warcraft 3, Riot Games may very well have never existed in the first place. StarCraft had really pushed esports to its limits at the time, making it far more mainstream, and Hearthstone was one of the first easily accessible collectible card games that appealed to a wide audience. Riot, on the other hand, are the Zoomers. They're up-to-date, modern, and sleek. In a very Marvel-esque way, Riot is focused on making an experience rather than simply cashing out on an IP. They have this formula that they're using where they take an existing idea, they polish and refine it, and then they add their own modernized flair to it. This has worked really well at disrupting markets so far. In a lot of ways, it's part of the foundational pillars of their company. League of Legends essentially followed this exact formula with Defense of the Ancients. It happened again with teamfight tactics in the auto battle genre, Valorant in the shooter genre, and they're likely going to do it again with their MMO. Already it seems, judging by the lead MMO designer Ghostcrawler's tweets, that Riot is trying to modernize the MMO genre without disrupting the foundations of what makes an MMO feel amazing to exist in. By all accounts, it seems they're going to keep the Holy Trinity, and they're going to have a fun, exciting world to explore with many RPG elements. And when I say part of this formula relies on them not messing too much with the foundations of what makes a game fun, the point is they're not going to try to make something 100% new. They're still going to be using the tried and tested methods. It's what they've done before. And while we're on the topic of innovation, we really can't forget about Arcane. Arcane broke so many rules that it should be in jail right now. It topped not only Netflix charts, but it also broke the barriers for what it meant to tell the story of a video game in a different medium, having amazing critic and audience reviews across the board. The storytelling is really amazing. The animation is great. The voice acting is amazing, and the entire show is just all around amazing. If any of you guys watching haven't seen it yet, I really do suggest that you go and watch it. It's a great show. It's no secret that pretty much all of the Blizzard half of Activision Blizzard games have been dying off recently. Overwatch was plagued with all kinds of issues, from low tick rate servers to balance qualms. Valorant gave people an answer, a competitive shooter that still allowed you to really pick a character and bond with them. They stepped in, and they siphoned off a large portion of the Overwatch player base. People called Hearthstone pay to win. It pushed a lot of the more casual players out of the game. So Riot created a card game, made it so you literally couldn't spend too much money to get a gigantic advantage over people who weren't willing to, and now we're seeing many people make the shift over to the Riot card game. Riot is now even sending out surveys asking if people would be interested in an RTS from the Runeterra universe to be built. So at some point Blizzard decided that it was time to strike back. After all, Defense of the Ancients was a Warcraft 3 mod, built in a Blizzard engine on Blizzard tech. MOBAs were just really starting to peak out, and someone at Blizzard stepped up. Finally, after almost a decade, they made a MOBA to compete with League, filled with nostalgia from all of their other IPs. You could play as everyone from Kerrigan from StarCraft 2 to Illidan from WoW. By all accounts, their MOBA, Heroes of the Storm, was supposed to be amazing, until it flopped. When you put it into perspective of a life cycle of a video game, Heroes of the Storm was basically dead on arrival. Blizzard, for whatever reason, is clearly unable to use Riot's formula successfully. The Blizzard take on modernization of a MOBA was just kinda bad. And I don't know if that pissed someone at Riot off, or if they just have some kind of grudge match against Blizzard, but they're going for the throat here now. They're targeting Blizzard's flagship game, the game that has allowed Blizzard to remain as a huge multiplayer game dev, and they have a World of Warcraft veteran helping them do it. Another striking difference between these two companies is how they handle their PR crises. Riot and Blizzard are currently both undergoing quite a bit of scrutiny due to allegations of sexism, harassment in the workplace, and other quite dark things that fall within the same vein. Obviously, these things can take a really heavy toll on a company's reputation, as well as their stock price. It's also a crystal clear and accurate sign that something within the company needs to change. Personally, I believe that corporations cannot have morals. They do whatever is required to pad their bottom line and generate revenue, so I tend to be skeptical whenever companies make these grandiose commitments, promises, and apologies. In Riot's case, however, I do believe that someone somewhere up the corporate ladder has decided that enough is enough and they're going to root out the problem, whether it be due to correcting moral concerns or just getting ahead of financial ones. You see, sometimes generating revenue means complying with your consumers' moral values. But at the end of the day, the motive for that type of response doesn't really matter that much. The outcome matters far more, and the outcome on the Riot Games side is a shift towards a more inclusive environment. There is also something to be said for how well Riot is deflecting their community's focus off of their shortcomings and onto new game releases, or hype surrounding new projects. Atriox sums it up almost perfectly here.
They basically litigated those cases on the court. And by that I mean, they started bawling. When this article came out, they followed it up with KDA. Their biggest expansion into music of all time. And all of a sudden, people were forgetting. Instead of trying to apologize until people, like, for some reason forgave them, they just dropped something cool.
Meanwhile, Blizzard can't seem to get past it. The inertia that company has is honestly insane. It seems to be a corporate mess where nothing really gets done. They can't divert from their current path literally at all. The claims aimed at Blizzard are also a lot less ephemeral than the ones aimed at Riot. All sorts of people from former employees to the state of California have leveled lawsuits and allegations at the companies, pushing their already faltering reputation to the brink. On top of all of this, people have also been unhappy with their games, and as a cherry on top, we can't also forget the Diablo fiasco. Look it up, you guys have phones, right? And it truly is a testament to Riot's tenacity that they're facing a lot of these same issues, but they've had one of their best months in a really, really long time. Arcane popped up on our Netflix feeds and right into our hearts. The popularity that show found was crazy. The League is still going strong, especially in Asia, despite dissent on the direction Riot should take the game, and Valorant is just popping off. Riot has not only figured out the formula of creating really popular new games, but they've also figured out the secret formula to mitigating the damage that we're seeing Blizzard take, which is to distract and at least appear to listen and change. Blizzard, on the other hand, makes lazy excuses. They delay their games, offering nothing for their community to refocus on. They refuse to even make an attempt to make it seem like they listen to their community, their employees, or their content creators. For example, Jen O'Neill just quit within 3 months because she went in and realized that there was no way she could make anything change. Nobody would listen to her. She was a token hire. And Skara and Disguised Toast have a really interesting video about how Blizzard treats them versus how Riot treats them. And I think we're finally beginning to see where that path inevitably leads. Activision Blizzard has had one of its worst years in history. Their stock price has tanked by over 40% since last February. Call of Duty Vanguard is considered one of the worst recent Call of Duty games, and multiple titles like Overwatch 2 and the newest Diablo have now been delayed until 2023, at the earliest. These are two games that Blizzard really needed to get out to get returning players back into the fold. Meanwhile, Arcane has topped the charts on Netflix. I mean, it literally became the 4th highest peak viewership category on Twitch in like 2 hours because of the events and co-streams that Riot built around it. On the other hand, Blizzard had the movie Warcraft. The MMO is insanely hyped even though we have literally no information on it, whereas Overwatch 2, people are just kind of like meh. We have all these crazy amounts of speculation on the MMO, we have tons of people asking Ghostcrawler questions on Twitter, and we have people like me making videos about it. Valorant, as I said earlier, is still popping off and growing. League seems to be making the slightest of comebacks in the eyes of the players in North America, and Riot Forge is a really, really cool initiative. The fact that Riot has created a system where they can support smaller companies while simultaneously expanding their world is a really, really unique and creative idea. The Ruined King game and Hextech Mayhem are proof of how great of a system this can be. Blizzard has also been experiencing a massive exodus of people from their games. Not only players, but also employees. It's adding fuel to the fire, and their talent has quickly been making a run for the doors. There have been 4 studios that have opened from ex-Blizzard employees in the last couple of years. I'd also go as far to assume that they're also having some trouble hiring, as they have a really bad reputation now, and they already had a reputation of not really paying anywhere above the industry standard, but expecting the clout and exposure from having worked for Blizzard as a suitable trade-off. And these employees that are leaving aren't just at the lower levels. It's to the point where ex-CEOs and founders are going off on their own because they're sick of the red tape that exists at Activision Blizzard. Right now, there seems to be this revolving door of employees, and it seems that more people are filtering out than coming on in. And another facet of the exodus from Blizzard theme is their player base. The players are just as important as the employees. Without the players, there's no money, and without the money, there is no game. Players have been steady dropping out of the Blizzard ecosystem for some time now. Wrath of the Lich King was great, Cataclysm was okay, plenty of people like Mop, but everybody hated Warlords of Draenor. It's really what tanked the WoW community, and it seems to be no better today. Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands are far from fan favorites, and with situations like the One True King group and Rich Campbell specifically helping to repopularize the Final Fantasy Online game, we're quickly seeing how willing and ready people are to jump ship from WoW. Overwatch was another crazy popular game. It could have absolutely been the game that revitalized arena shooters, but instead Blizzard decided to release the game with low tick rate servers, competitive imbalance, and just an all-around weird system. And then Valorant came out, and we saw how many influencers and pros hopped on their way over from Overwatch. Now I want to talk about StarCraft 2 for a second too, because StarCraft 2 really was something cool, and in many ways it popularized the esports scene, and it showed that you really could get fame and money from playing a video game. The genius idea here was to pop out a DLC that forced many people out of the StarCraft 2 space, because not only are DLCs inherently bad for competitive games, but the DLC also sucked. At the end of the day, I think it's pretty clear that Riot Games takes the cake as being the better modern game developer. They're steady releasing content as opposed to seeming to be stuck. They're at least attempting to look like they're making up for corporate mistakes, and when it's against insurmountable odds, they have the presence of mind to distract us, which we can argue about the moral implications of that all day, but from a business perspective, it's really a smart move. They understand modern monetization structures, and it doesn't feel like they're forcing you to pay for garbage, and most importantly, they interact with their community. I really hope the Riot MMO comes out soon, although it does seem like it may be the end of an era. It may be the final nail in the coffin for Blizzard. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe.